What time is it? Ask
Ask
your
your auntie.
auntie. Oh, okay. Strike a pose. Yes, darling. This week's Ask Yo AunTeas question is actually from me because we're making this a blackity black episode. It kind of came up to me in a moment, I've been on Clubhouse and just kind of hearing different folks' stories, and it sparked this question for me, and I just kind of wrote it down real quick before here. But it's just like, so like when it comes to like sexuality, there's many people within the LGBTQIA plus community remember either a moment or a time where they're like, oh, I'm not like them, I'm not like the others, I might like this boy or I might like this girl or whatever it may be. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were black? And I was trying to like think, and I was like, okay, I remember moments where like, oh, I remember liking that boy, or and maybe not having the terminology of knowing I was gay. But then I was like, have I ever had a moment where I knew I was black? So I'm gonna let you guys answer first.
I definitely remember recognizing that I was gay, different, queer, liking boys, well before I knew anything about race. Um, the on the flip side, because I was probably like 4, I think, when I first started. Like, I think I saw like the not. I think I saw I saw the first Superman movie, and then I
Oh,
went
you saw
home and
Christopher Reeve in them briefs.
I was like, oh, I just want to live in your crystal castle. I'll make you dinner. I had a dream about this. He was flying around the world. I was cooking dinner. Um, but it wasn't a moment for me about realizing that I was black, in that traditional sense. Like, it was like an aha moment. It was more of, I remember when I started going to school, and I was probably between maybe 7 and 8, and blackness was always part of family conversations. So I never really had like that aha, like, oh yeah, I'm black. I always felt the otherness, primarily coming from my queerness, but I always remember there always being, blackness was always discussed as part of, like, they don't treat you like us, and you have to work, you have to be twice as smart, and twice as good, and da 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 da. Like, I remember all of those things, which then informed me about, like, just my blackness.
All right.
What about you, Boo?
I don't know. Like, for me, I think I like kind of what you said, Duane. Like, I think I realized that I was into men or boys or different or whatever sooner than I realized I was black as well. Just because growing up, everything was black, blacky, black, black, black. Like, the widest thing that we got to growing up was, what was his name? Is it Bono? No.
Bono. Not you too.
No, it was his.
Just that
John Bon Jovi. Is that his name? John Bon
Yes,
Jovi.
John Bon Jovi.
My mom was a big fan of his. That was like the only white person that I knew for quite a while as far as white music. But it wasn't until I was probably like 10 or 12 that I was like, oh, there are other people than black folks, because it was just so black, and Gary and north side of Minneapolis. So and even in like in elementary school, like, white people where I went to school were the minority, so I grew up with such a diverse, school of, knowing about Vietnamese, indigenous people, Somalians, like all sorts of different types of backgrounds. So I didn't really start understanding, having that moment of, oh shit, you black, until I started doing more of the white people sports. And so, like, when I started being the only Negro at the pool doing swimming and diving, and I'm like, oh shit, like, that was my first kind of like a speck of pepper in the sea of salt. That was easy. I could, oh, there go my mama right there. Not only can I hear her ass, but I can see her because she stick out because she's the one black person, And I think it would probably wasn't diving when, you know, one of the person was like, "Oh, you can swim?" And I was like, "Okay, I must be real like that's
Right.
obviously a black thing, you know." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, you know, I have to think about it. Yeah, I'm black. I'm sure I stick out here." But I don't know. I mean, that was probably the first time. It never bothered me. I never had any type of experience where it was just kind of like it affected me in a certain way. It wasn't until coming out and being gay and actually being in gay spaces where I had a moment. I was like, I'm black, and
Mm-hmm.
that was more life changing. I felt like those moments as an adult were more kind of life changing than when I noticed it when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah, like I so when I thought this question, I couldn't think of a moment either. There wasn't like a distinct moment in time where I was like, ah, I learned the lesson from someone calling me something, blah blah. And like it was just weird, just growing up in a predominantly white space, and I don't even know when I would have even been able to acknowledge it or know it was different because like going to school was like predominantly white, but then like with my parents being pastors, our church was predominantly black. So like I knew of the distinctness of it, but that was maybe just my norm that I didn't think anything of it. And honestly, I had made it all the way through almost to the end of my senior year in high school before someone in the school, because like growing up in a small town, I knew a lot of the same people growing up from like kindergarten all the way to senior year in high school. And senior year in high school was the first time I got called the N word by someone. And so I know that distinct marker, but I knew I was black before then, but like it wasn't like troublesome as much, or I don't know what the word is, but I agree. Like I definitely knew more the markers of being gay and things like that. And so that's just kind of interesting how like the
Yeah.
sexuality part of it sticks out more than just like your race part of it. Both of them,
Mm-hmm.
you're born both, born gay and black. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
interesting that the black part of me, I don't remember a distinct marker. And it literally was until one of my good friends, bringing when his dad passed, my dad went to the funeral and he gave a story that I didn't even know till he told at the funeral. And like in elementary school you do like the little different little plays and shit like that, and especially at our school we did like plays every year in like grade school. And my dad was sitting next to Mr. Breen, and my dad was like, and they always joked it back and forth. They like my dad's a jokester, Mr. Breen was a jokester, and my dad was like, "Oh, which one's your kid?" And even though he knew, but like we were all dressed up, and he's just like, "Oh, there's Jason right there." And then Mr. Breen was like, "Which one's your kid?" And here's Carell, like one of like I'm trying to think that year in school, probably might have been the only black kid in that grade that year. And so that was their kind of like little kiki haha kind of moment. But I'm sure my parents had moments where it might have, they knew what was occurring more than we
Mhm.
were growing up. And I almost want to have a conversation with my dad and mom, just be like, were there moments that you guys shielded us away from potentially like racism and things that people were saying that we just didn't know because you just wanted us to have a quote unquote normal experience, especially for them growing up in the deep south where they went to segregated schools where they didn't
Mhm.
have white friends. And my dad says to this day he didn't have a white friend until he got his PhD at Iowa State. So like mid 20s when you go, like after he graduated college,
Mm-hmm.
left
Mhm.
Georgia, went to an HBCU, then went to Iowa State where he's like, it's like the whitest of the white in Iowa.
Mhm.
And so it's just interesting. Like I'm sure they've had so many experiences that somehow they still didn't manage to dump that on us. And so that's why I kind of wanted to bring this up. I was like, am I abnormal that I don't have a distinct marker where I knew I was black just because it was just the norm? Like we went to Martin Luther King programs, we went, so it was ingrained in my week in, week out. But I always just had
Mm-hmm.
these weird worlds where during the school day it's predominantly white, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're in church like 5 days a week and you leave school and go to church and it's predominantly black. And it was all normal. If
Mhm.
that makes sense. I don't know. So
Yeah, I can say I definitely remember the first time a white person asked to touch my hair.
mm,
You know, and that was probably another marker where I was just like, okay, I know I'm like the only black person in the room
yeah.
right now. And I will never
Mhm.
forget Tiffany in 2004.
Ooh.
She came up to me and she was like, "Can I touch your hair?" And I was like, what?
Where'd
And
they
she
do that
touched
at?
it. She touched it.
Oh.
And then her reply was, it feels like carpet. And
Whoa.
I didn't know how to handle myself. And then she was just like, I'm going to call you Carpet Boy.
Oh no.
So I kind of was just one of those moments where you're just like, I don't know how I should respond right now because this is some white ass shit to do and to
Wow.
say to someone. So I just, I just kindly walked away. And that was probably the last time I ever bit my motherfucking tongue. So y'all can thank
2004.
Tiffany for Auntie Hennessy.
Thank you, Tiffany.
She then blossomed after that.
That is interesting. Yeah, I remember in
Yeah.
college because I had braids. So like even as long as my hair is now, it was way longer then, and then chopped it off, and now it grew back out, I guess. But I remember people wanting to touch the braids and things like that, or Carell, throw it out, let me see your fro, and that was like always a thing. And I was so adamant of not letting them see me with a fro because I felt like that's what the even though the cornrows and things like that might have been very stereotypical, but I just felt like that was a power giving them just to see me with a fro. And I did it literally my last weekend of college, like, because I knew I had to get fresh braids for graduation. So I went out to the bars, maybe like that Thursday night or something like that, got it braided again Friday and graduated Saturday. That was the only time in college that people outside my like roommates saw me with an afro, because I felt like it wasn't, the way they were asking me wasn't to celebrate the afro. It was more just because it was almost like a caricature of what a black person was supposed to look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I distinctly throughout college, when people, and I don't think they meant any ill behind it, because the people, they're, good people, whatever. But I think that's still some of those minute, micro things that I think a lot of white folks don't realize, especially when it comes to hair, being called carpet boy and things like that, that they don't know they're doing at times.
Yeah, it's almost like a black marker. Like they're almost a check to see how black you are.
Right.
It's like, oh, like, are you like this?
Right.
Do you like this? Do you talk like this? Oh, so you're black. And it's like,
yeah,
no, bitch, the color of my skin alone means I'm black, bitch. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need to fucking know. Like, that's all it takes to be black. Right.
Like my skin makes more melanin. Simply that. But yeah, that was this week's Ask Yo Aunteas question. Continue to send your Ask Your Auntie questions, aya@minoritetyreport.com, or DM us. We needed some fresh batches, by the way. Like, it's a new year. I'm sure some shit has popped off in 2021 already. Right. So let us know the questions and advice that you need in 2021.